everybody, welcome to another day of happy Molidays. Today we're going to be talking about what blackness means, what it means to be black. But first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by me and my books. By my books, okay? We got Yoga with Antidote. It's a kids yoga book, children of every age, even adults too. It has pictures of my little cousins and you can follow along and do the movements. This is perfect book for the child in your life. Buy it as a present. It has nice big lettering and representation matters, okay? Little black kids and little kids of all colors. You can see that little black children do yoga too. I also have a book of poetry that's upside down. And if you like poems, you should get my book of poetry. It's a short little book. It has different parts. It has cool poems in it. And you should get the book of poetry for the person in your life. Buy my book of poetry. My most recent book, my biggest, best, most extravagant book is 5 Minutes of Peace, Yoga for Today's Woman. And even though it's yoga for today's woman, everybody can do it. So if you're a she, even a he, a they, a them, you should definitely buy my book and practice. This book I did because a lot of women, I have experienced that a lot of women are always like really busy and multitasking and can't squeeze out an hour to do yoga. So I did 5-minute practices, that's 5 poses each, really easy to do. It has all these pictures and I explained how to do the poses, how to put the poses together to make a sequence. So what you should do is you should go buy my book. It comes in a soft cover with black and white pictures, and it also comes as an ebook. All of the books I mentioned come as an ebook, which is cheaper than the regular book, and you don't have to pay for shipping, and you can gift ebooks to people. You know, if you have their email address, you can gift them the ebook. And this book, Yoga for Women, also comes in a bigger hardcover version with colored images, big colored images, and you can see me doing the poses, and I give you options, different options for the poses. Like here for plank pose, I give you different options. Like you can do the regular plank pose, you can do plank pose on your knees, or you can do plank pose on your forearms if you have issues with your wrist. I break down the poses, I put them together so you don't have to be afraid of doing yoga. I try to make it so everyone can feel comfortable. You can try the things in your own home. And I mean, if you have questions or you want to take it further, you can book a private yoga session with me. What's not to love? Buy the book just for the cover. This cover was done by a Jamaican artist called Alfonso Elm, and all of the pictures were taken by my friend who we share a godchild together, and he also took this picture on the back. So y'all, look at some pretty pictures, do some yoga, buy my book. If you don't want my yoga book, if you don't want it for yourself, buy it as a present. Buy my poetry book, buy my kids book, buy my books. Okay y'all. Back to the video. When I was in college, I remember the other kids would ask me, Mo, are you African American? And I'd say no. And then people would be offended. But I'm neither African nor American, so how can I be African American? And then I'd say, they'd be like, so what are you? I'd be like, black. And they'd be like, that's offensive. I'm like, how? I say, well, West Indian, and they'd be like, that's offensive. And I'd say, how? And then like people would ask me random shit like, is your mom on welfare? And I'd be like, what? And then when people would ask me, do you live in a hut? Do you swing from vines? Are there monkeys in your country? And y'all, like, that was my first experience in the US, and like all of these questions, essentially racist. And like I didn't even know. And I would tell the upperclassmen some of these questions, and they'd like get mad and like go talk to the kid. But I'm just like 18-year-old white people know so little. And this is the creme de la creme. These are like most of these people were valedictorians in their high schools. I've been seeing some things on these streets that make me realize that a lot of the bullying and the gatekeeping that happens right now, telling people like how they should, telling black people, particular black women, how they should exist in public, or downright telling them they shouldn't exist in public, is because of people's definitions of blackness. What do I mean? People have in their head what it means to be black. And if you stop this video and you think for a moment about what it means to be black, you kind of like have a picture in your head. And for different people that means different things. As I've grown and been exposed to more different people, I've broadened my idea of what it means to be black. That's because of how I was raised in a mostly black country where the black people look like me, and people could have been like mixed, like Indian mixed with Indian. They were like mixed, like black was different than like mixed, and it's messed up in its own ways. One of these days we're going to do a deep dive into where the definition of blackness came from, but I want to talk about in the modern context. So looking back, we had things like the one drop rule. So basically what they would say is like, if your ancestor several generations was black, you're still black. That was what they used to say that black people marrying and intermingling with white people was corrupting, dirtying the race. So that's like how like one definition of blackness came about. And you can see that in when people have mixed children, people going out of their way to make sure the children know that they're black, even if the children have light skin and light hair. Like some people will like really, really make sure these children know that they are black. And there was also the paper bag test, where they would literally hold a paper bag up to your skin, and if you were darker than the paper bag, you were black. Both of those definitions of blackness come from white people. So a lot of what we define blackness to be now in contemporary society has been defined by white people. And as such, the definition of blackness is rooted in colonialism and oppression. So they defined blackness by our ancestors, by our ancestors having been slaves. And that definition is rooted in white supremacy and in the inferiority of the black race. So for those people to be comfortable with black people existing, we have to have come from colonization, come from slavery, and therefore inherently we are less fortunate. Then in their minds, black people always are lower than white people. Even if they do not articulate it, a lot of times our mindset, and I'm not just talking about white people, I'm talking about people from a variety of backgrounds who believe that blackness is rooted in struggle, that blackness is rooted in suffering, that black people are inherently less educated, have less resources, live in the ghetto, are criminals, are uneducated, are poor. And when presented with anything different from that, they categorize you as not black. We saw this with President Obama. They tried to say he wasn't black, but then they'd say he wasn't African American because his mother was white, so he doesn't know the struggle, so he cannot represent the concerns of black people. They would say his father was African, he wasn't raised in a black community, he was raised by a white woman, therefore he's not black. We see this now with Kamala Harris. People will straight up say she's not African American, she's not black. Her father was Jamaican, her mother is Indian. She doesn't understand the struggle. A lot of people will say to black people, you sound white. Oh, because you got an education, you think you're white. Oh, because you live in the suburbs, you think you're white. You dress white. You like white movies. You like white music. Because the idea that has been presented over and over in popular culture is that black people sound a certain way. Black people live in the inner city. Black people eat certain foods. Black people only like certain movies, only like certain music. And therefore, by constricting blackness to just that, they eliminate the lived experience, they eliminate the existence of so many people. But the reason why they're constricting blackness to just that is because they can continue to discriminate against us. And the things that they constrict blackness to are the things that they discriminate against us for. And the thing is, those of us that people try to exclude from blackness, we don't face any less discrimination. When people are racist towards you, it's based on your skin. They don't know where you live. They don't know how you sound. They don't know how much education you have, how much money you have, what job you have. And it's also because of the lie that people tell themselves. They will say it's not because you're black, it's because you're poor. It's not because you're black, it's because you're uneducated. It's not because you're black, it's because you're a criminal. But when faced with the fact that they treat the person who's not poor, who's not from the inner city, who has an education, the same way that they treat Shaniqua from the ghetto, then they're faced with the fact that they are indeed racist. Instead, they like to believe that black people only exist in a certain way because they can continue to lie to themselves that the reason why they treat you that way, the reason why they're discriminating against you, is not because of the color of your skin, it's because of your circumstance. And as black people, a lot of us co-sign this. We try to tell other black people they're not black. Candace Owens, would we like to disown her? Yes. But she's still black? Does Candace Owen also do this a lot? Yes. The other day I was on a Twitter space that was dedicated to dunking on Kamala Harris, spreading misinformation, and it was under the guise of blackness. These people were saying the reason why they were mad at Kamala Harris is because she was not fighting for reparations. However, they were repeating right-wing talking points, and some of them who were hosting the space have been shown to be Republicans. And that is something you see a lot. A lot of the black people who gatekeep blackness are doing it under the guise of the upliftment of the black community. But what they're doing is upholding white supremacy. That's what you're doing when you're gatekeeping blackness. When you gatekeep blackness, when you try to decide who is and isn't black, not based on the color of their skin, which is what blackness simply is, but based on a culture that was determined by the white man, you are upholding white supremacy. When we continue to push the narrative that black people are more than how they show us in popular culture, in popular media, when we try to push the narrative that black people of all different types exist, gamers, computer nerds, programmers, coders, it blows their mind. Some people who were pushing the Meghan Markle hate campaign cannot accept that Christopher Boozy can code, can develop a whole system thing that I don't understand, and I don't mind that I don't understand. We have him to do it, that can identify hate accounts. They cannot accept that a black man can do this. He falls outside their definition of a black man, so they are trying to discredit him by saying that anybody could do this, that he's doing this, that he's doing something wrong. Because one of the consequences of having defined black people by suffering, having defined black people by the struggle, is that when we fall outside the struggle, when we don't identify with the struggle, when the thing they know about us is not the struggle, when we show that we are more than the struggle, when we show that that black excellence is a thing, when we show that we can do just as well, if not better than white people, they have to find a flaw, they have to find a fault with us. And because white supremacy is everywhere, it's deeply ingrained in society, I totally just lost some footage. So, white supremacy is everywhere. And until we take the time to look at the ways white supremacy is deeply ingrained, all the little threads everywhere throughout our lives, we can't unlearn those things. We'll continue to do things that like define blackness as struggle. Defining blackness as those things allows people to use the things that they use to define blackness as a means to deny black people access to resources. And by those definitions of blackness, somehow it excludes black people as being trans, mentally ill, disabled. And so somehow somehow the definition of blackness in a lot of people's mind does not include those things, does not include autism, they like erase whole swaths of the black people, because that is how, by denying the existence of those things, that is how they can keep blackness in the definition in their head and deny us things. And what we're seeing now in a lot of conversations is that as people come to recognize that black people have been oppressed, as our oppression is so visible out there that we can see it, that as a society we can accept that racism exists, that we see there's videos of people calling the police for someone standing while black, walking while black. We've seen people die literally sitting on their couch in their house, sleeping, and we've seen nothing happen for it. So it's becoming harder and harder to deny that the oppression of black people is because of their blackness, it's because of their skin color, it's because of systemic racism. As it becomes harder to deny that black people are oppressed simply because they are black, you see people trying to use things like, but what about women? That's when you have the white feminist. You see people start to say, I'm disabled, so I should also. We see people deny the fact that they have privilege and hold on to another marginalized identity as a means to erase the lived experiences, as a means to downplay the oppression of black people. And so, yes, black people have been suffering. We've suffered for generations. Our ancestors suffered across continents. Yes, colonization sucked. Yes, we still face systemic racism today. But despite all of that, despite them trying to keep us out of schools, despite them trying to keep us out of certain workplaces, despite them trying to block our access to pools, to swimming, to housing, to everything, we are still here. And we are so much more than the struggle. And also, black joy is the antidote, y'all. They don't want us to be happy. They don't want us to take a break from fighting, because they think that if we are happy right now, that means we are not oppressed. We can be oppressed and hang on to the moments of joy, because that is what is going to keep us fighting for freedom. So, I want you to take some time, have some reflection, think about what you think it means to be black. And I want you to think about the people you have met, because I'm sure you've met them in real or on these internet streets, who challenge your idea of blackness. So the next time you try to think in your head that so and so is acting white, or this person is not black because, I want you to stop, and I want you to try to erase that white supremacist thinking from your mind. The only way we can continue to survive, to grow, and to come to a place where black people, and indeed people of all creeds and colors, are able to not just survive but flourish and thrive, is if we continue to fight for black liberation and native sovereignty and immigrant rights. Now, I've rambled far and far from the topic, and I'm tired of talking, so we're going to end here today, y'all. Tomorrow will be a live stream because, y'all, things been going on in these internet streets, and I want to share it with y'all. So we'll talk soon. Y'all have a happy Molidays. See y'all soon. Right when I was about to edit this video, I got this comment on my video commenting on Twitter Spaces and the racism there, basically saying that black women shouldn't exist in public. And this person made fun of my accent, told me to go back to my country even if I'm already in my country, and is gatekeeping blackness by pretending to be a black person and saying I'm not a foundational black American. What even is that? Do you see how they try to keep some of us out of blackness? Like, this is just so many levels of messed up, which is exactly why we needed today's video. Anyways, see y'all soon. Bye. Happy holidays. Happy Molidays. Happy Molidays to you, my friends. Bye. When I was in college, I remember I've been seeing some things on these streets that and there was also, yes, we still face systemic